Welcome to this IIBA Bluegrass Chapter BA Talk. I'm Eric Neill, and I'm the Director of Certifications for the Bluegrass Chapter. During this BA Talk, we'll be going over these specific items on our agenda. So the first is the change from BABOK 2 to BABOK 3. Additionally, we'll talk a little bit about IIBA's new approach to certifications, which one's right for you, and finally, we'll just mention some key takeaways. One of the key takeaways today for all of us is that as of October 1st of last year, so 2016, all exams are based on the BABOK version 3. If you have BABOK version 2 materials, you don't need to discard them, but please be advised that they won't be relevant for the BABOK 3 testing. And quite frankly, the version 3 of the BABOK has a lot more material than the version 2 ever had. When we take a look at how IIBA has moved its certification from the prior two levels that they had, which was the CCBA, shown as level 2 here, and level 3, the CBAP, or CBAP as it was known, level 3, they have added two additional levels, a level 1 for entry level and a level 4 for thought leaders. And if you take a look at this, you'll notice that it's a very inclusive model. It is more inclusive than many other organizations might be able to offer. For example, the Project Management Institute offers a BA certification in business analysis for project management. It's a single level certification. This certification level approach that IIBA has put in place allows for including of practitioners, students, and managers. It protects the levels that you had previously. So if you are a CCBA or a CBAP designee today, you have protected the levels of that you've attained already and have put you nicely into this pyramid so that you can see how your career can progress in terms of certifications. And finally, the last major thing to point out would be that IIBA has moved primarily to a competency-based certification, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, let's take a look at each one of these levels as it is coming forward now in the new certification approach. The first one is the ECBA, which is brand new and is available today, so you can look at pursuing this if you are a manager of BAs but are not a BA yourself. If you're a student of business analysis and you're thinking that you may want to move into this as a profession, the ECBA is a great way to be able to start off. We'll talk later on in terms of how what the qualifications are and how you take the exams and things of that nature. But for now, let's just leave it at the fact that the key takeaway for this is that you are simply going to be in a position to be able to understand the concepts behind business analysis and a few details around business analysis, but there's no expectation that you would be a practitioner yourself. The CCBA has not really changed at all. It expects you to be a business analyst with somewhere between 3 and 5 years of analysis work. And in this case here, the key takeaway for a CCBA applicant is to know that you've been somebody who has been able to apply the knowledge professionally for a certain period of time. The CBAP, or level 3, looks for someone to have been a business analyst, a role for 5 or more years, and you're working with a certain amount of progressive seniority, and complexity may in fact be, as it says here for the key takeaways, a guide, a lead, or a practitioner or senior practitioner within the area of business analysis. The fourth, the CBATL, which has not yet, as of this recording, been released, will be primarily for those most senior business analysts. Think of somebody who has 10 to 15 years experience or more within the business analysis world and may be viewed as a practice lead or a thought leadership representative within their organizations and in fact within IIBA itself. This exam will come out at some point. Keep watching the IIBA International's website in order to know when this exam is coming out. We put a star next to the CCBA and the CBAP because we wanted to point out again to holders of those two certifications, your roles as designees in CCBA or CBAP are fully protected. There is no need for you to take exams again if you're going to stay at the CCBA level. You don't need to change anything. You are grandfathered in. If you are a CCBA and you wish to proceed up the ladder and move towards a CBAP, you will apply and take the exam for the CBAP just as if you were any other applicant. One of the questions that has come up is what is competency-based examinations? And competency-based is a little bit different than just knowledge-based. Knowledge-based, we're able to describe, we're able to identify and articulate concepts that are from an educational perspective important, and also one from being able to prove that we have certain knowledge. But in situation or competency-based activities, we take a look at the situation itself first. What is the situation? So you're going to be given a context. Think of a business case that you might be given, or some other kind of documentation that would describe a business scenario, a real life opportunity to examine what goes on. At that point, you need to be able to take a look and understand what the ability to perform the role is. So now, do I have the right knowledge? Do I understand how to elicit information from my stakeholders? Am I able to articulate some of the tools and techniques that would be used in order to be able to address this situation and make sure that we come up with one or more solutions that would be applicable? Continuing on, in terms of competency, it's not just good enough to have the book learning and to have the knowledge and understanding. You must also be able to apply that experience. And in applying that experience, you're going to ensure the fact that you can take real life examples and be able to address whatever your specific elicitation or your other tool or technique is that you're going to be using. There are two more areas that are involved with competency-based training. We need to be able to prove that the solutions and or the tools and techniques that we're going to be using are practical for the context of the examination and the context of the business scenario that has been put in place for that examination question, and also that they're reflective. You need to be able to demonstrate that not only do you have the book learning, but that because of the context base of the business scenario, you're able to also describe in a reflective manner what would be the most appropriate or more appropriate than other potential tools and techniques and methodologies. And finally, there needs to be a clear demonstration that you understand the process and that you know what you're doing. And lastly, this could be an iterative process. You may find yourself with more than one opportunity to be able to describe a business scenario and be able to go back through and understand if the situation were slightly altered in one form or another, how would I be able to address that? The question of target audience has come up, and we mentioned this a little bit in one of the prior slides, but let's just make sure that we actually appropriately represent what IIBA's position is on this. And on this slide here, I'm going to leave the slide up for a couple of moments and let you read it for yourselves, because this does provide for you the basic information as to what your target audience would be and what type of examination you might apply for, depending upon your specific condition and maturity within the BA sphere. Do take a moment to understand a little bit how this is assessed. So for example, if you're looking at the ECBA, the knowledge-based examination, it's 50 questions, it's an hour and a half, it's a basic multiple choice, which is different than a scenario-based for the CCBA or the case study-based for the examination for the CBAP. So I'm going to let you read this for a few seconds and then we'll move on to the next topic. Every exam has a blueprint for it, and what we're showing you here would be the exam blueprint for the ECBA. So remember, the ECBA on the left-hand side is specifically for those who are going to be managers or entry level. You'll notice that the largest amount of emphasis is on the requirements analysis and design definition, followed closely behind by elicitation, collaboration, and requirements and lifecycle management. That's going to be a little bit different in approach than the CCBA and the CBAP, which are shown to you on the right side of the slide, so that you can begin to understand that there's a leveling, if you will, or an approach that says that I may need to know more. So for example, 32% of the CCBA and 30% of the CBAP is requirements analysis and design definition, up from the 24% at the ECBA. We share this with you only so that you begin to see how, as I move from ECBA through the CCBA to the CBAP, how those percentages might change. IIBA has an excellent website for their certification page, and we would encourage you to ensure that before you do anything, you go out to iiba.org and go out and look at the certification website itself. It will always have the latest information. Please remember this is being recorded in March of 2017, and so there may be some changes as we go forward. There are a couple of things that we want to make sure that you take in mind. Give yourself plenty of time. Don't wait until the last minute to proceed with your examinations and your application for examination. So give yourself at least 60 days to complete the application and get the necessary recommendations and supporting documentation in place. IIBA, as a professional organization, takes very seriously the application process and does require, depending upon the level that you're applying for certain recommendations and additional supporting documentation and evidence of work performance in order to ensure that you are in fact qualified from a work perspective. We also want to make sure that you complete those hours of work service and the educational hours that are required. In the ECBA case, there are many webinars that are recorded on the IIBA site that would qualify for it, but for some of the other certifications, you're going to want to be part of a study group or take part in a professionally delivered class by a recognized education provider. And finally, do give yourself plenty of time to study and review the materials. You may be an experienced business analyst, but if you're not familiar with the terminology, with the tools and techniques that are mentioned and how they apply within the BABOK version 3, you'll want to go back and make sure that you understand that completely. Part of the certification website that the IIBA has is a very nice online guide to this competency-based certification. You can see there's a typical tree format on the left-hand side of the screen, then some text and other information that's on the right-hand side. This is easy to navigate. It provides a lot of information, and the deeper you go into this, the easier and the more information that you'll be able to obtain. And I think you'll find this to be a truly valuable tool, free to everybody who's on the website. And I wouldn't proceed in looking at any of these certifications, or even while I'm studying for the certification, without making sure I spend some time on the online guide to competency-based testing. So we'd like you to think about the 3 specifics for your key takeaways here. It is IIBA now is completely competency-based certification. So we want you to be knowledgeable about the topics, but you also need to be competent and capable as a practitioner. This is something that not all certification organizations provide, but this is something that's very near and dear to the heart of IIBA. You now have, through the efforts of IIBA, the opportunity to find the right level for your specific competency level and maturity, as well as what you need in terms of your professional career. Finally, I'd suggest that there's probably no excuses for you, that you are a professional, and as a professional, it would be wonderful for you to make sure that you have the appropriate certification, both as a sign for your employer and as something that would bring value for yourself. The Bluegrass chapter of IIBA does offer study groups. Typically, we need to have 6 or more students in order to be able to put a study group together. We'd like to run 1 or 2 a year, so always look at our website or send a request for information through the website, and we'll be sure to give you information in terms of when we might be conducting a study group. These are typically held in a virtual mode or in a virtual with some personal in-person meetings, but we try to make sure that we have at least one per year. I'd like to thank you for listening to this BA talk and considering a certification from IIBA. Your Bluegrass IIBA chapter is pleased to be part of IIBA International and to present these talks as an opportunity to share some insights with you from time to time. Thank you and have a good day.